In this tutorial I'll show you how to create this letter Y animation similar to one I recently created for this year's 36 Days of Type. We're going to do some very simple modelling and use deformers and constraints to create the animation using only one null object. Please remember to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below if there is any other techniques you want me to create tutorials on. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so let's just start off by setting up the project. So I'm going to set this up at my normal Instagram size, which is 1000 by 1250. Let's set the frame rate to 25. That's a render frame rate. And under project settings, I'm just going to set this up at 25 frames per second and 100 frames. So we're going for a 4-second looping animation. That's what we're going for in the end. Okay, so first thing we'll do is just bring in a cube, and we'll resize this cube. We'll make it 25 in the X, 150 in the Y, and 40 in the Z. And we'll just zoom in. Okay, and so to create those kind of like zip segments, we can do that just using the Y segments here. So we'll make that segments of 20, and if I go to the display mode, change that to with lines, you see we've got those 20 segments. Okay, so the first thing we'll do after that is just make this editable, and with the polygon selection tool, we'll just select every other polygon that are going to be the extrusions for our kind of zip pieces, and I'm going to extrude these. I want these to kind of be square, so if I extrude these out, I know that this is 150 high. I've got 20 segments, so this is 7.5 high, so I want this to be 7.5 out, just so everything's kind of nice and even. So that's our lockup basically. Okay, so what we want to do next is just give this some more geometry so we can kind of bend it, but I like to kind of keep the original model as simple as possible, just so that if we want to go back and amend it, add on things later on, then we can do that. So with the cube selected, I'm going to hold down Alt and go to simulate cloth surface to add this more geometry on here. Now obviously at the moment it's kind of doing this weird bulging, so we can change that by actually ticking the bulging tab. I'm not too sure why that does that, but we don't want it bulging out. We just want to use this to add more subdivisions, more geometry. And so I'll put this up to 2, and then I want to add some smoothness. So again, with Alt selected, I'm going to add the subdivision surface. So now we've got more kind of more polygons to our object, but we can always obviously amend it later on. Now on the edges, you see we've got these slight curves, so what I probably want to do is actually, the way that we've got a cube here, like a square here, I want to kind of cube it off. So if I select the box, the polygon selection tool, I'm going to pick this is the loop path cut, and then I'm going to click on here roughly in the right place, and then I'm going to do the same roughly on the other side. Let's say right there. Okay, so just to kind of square it off, just so that when we add our geometry in, it just kind of looks a bit cleaner. So now we've got our kind of general zip shape. Actually, what I might do is just take that subdivisions just down to 1, so it's a bit more kind of curvy, and now I can get rid of the lines, so we don't need those for now. But you can see you can add in, we could probably add in more subdivisions on there just to kind of make it smoother. Okay, so we've got a nice smooth zip shape. Okay, so that's our left side of the zip, so I'm going to call that left, and then I'm actually going to group that, call that left, so that's our left group, and then I'm going to duplicate the whole thing, and I'm going to call this one right, I'll call this right. Okay, and I'm just going to rotate this whole thing through 180 degrees. And because we, it's the same object, and that we've got those offset boxes, you see they fit perfectly together. So if we're just going to front view, just going to kind of line them up roughly. See on here, let's just call that 33. Okay, so there's the two halves of our kind of Y zip shape. So now we can start actually adding in the bends, which are going to create our Y opening up, the zip from the top, and then we'll create the zip from the bottom, and then create the animation on top of that. So the reason I put these into folders is so that I can put the bends inside of there, and it will affect everything within that folder. So let's get one of these bend deformers, and I'll stick it in this box, and we want it to kind of fit around. So we're on the right one. Let's just hide the left. We want it to fit around this. And you know, you think you'd say fit to parent, but you can't because it doesn't recognize the actual box that's in there. So the cheat to do that is to just put that on the cube, set that to fit to parent, and bring it back out again. So now it perfectly aligns with that. Now I can add on a strength, and I bet you this will not bend in the correct direction. Oh my goodness, it did. That's once in a lifetime. So obviously you can rotate this around if it's in the wrong direction. What I'm going to do is just make this maybe a height of like 100. And you'll see, if we just move this up, you see it's bending. But you see as it's bending, it's kind of stretching everything out. I don't want it to do that. So we can check this, keep y-axis length. Check that, and then it will keep the length of the object. So it kind of looks less deformed as it moves down. So let's just move this maybe halfway down, and then bring the left back in. And what I'll do is duplicate this bend. See, it's bending the wrong way. I mean, this is an effect you could do if you wanted to twist everything, but what we want to do is rotate this around. Let's reset this. It's going funky. Let's rotate this 180. There you go. And just line this up with the right side. Okay, we'll just go on the front to make sure that's all lined up. Yep. Okay, so there's our two bends, okay, and we can move those up and down, and we're starting to get that movement. Now we obviously want the bends at the bottom, and then we want to move them in a way in the final animation where this kind of comes down and kind of bounces. So we'll do a few things to set that up. So let's leave that as that is, and we want to have the bends at the bottom. So let's duplicate again, and this one I'm gonna rotate this 180 in the other direction, so it's going down, and then I'm going to position it just so it's below the bottom of the Y. I'll do the same on the other side, so we'll rotate this around 180 and then move this down so it's kind of down the bottom, and I'll just go in the front view to make sure they're lined up. Okay, so I just want both of these to kind of be off of the Y so they're not affecting it at all. So we have a straight bottom and then that kind of bent out top there. Okay, now to animate these, I mean, you could select all four of these and then, you know, set keyframes for all of them, but that could be a bit of a pain. So you can do you can add a constraint so that we can move all four at once. So to do that, we'll first have to add in a null object, and this null object is what's going to control everything, and we'll name this target. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that's position, scale rotation, or size rotation, everything is zeroed out, because this will be important later. So that's our target. Now if we select all four of those bends and then go to tags, character tags, and click constraint. Now in here you can constrain these by all different things, but we're just going to constrain it to a parent. So just the most simple version, just constraining it to one other object. And this is kind of useful in a lot of animations that I do. So in this instance, we're just going to have these four being controlled by one null. So we click parent, and then all of those, with all those still selected, we have this target here. So we can drag target into target. And now we can just move that one target object, and that will move all four. Okay, now you could obviously do all sorts of crazy things, but we're just going to move up and down. Now to get the bounce on this, I mean, you could just animate this up and down, but to get that nice bounce on, we kind of want to add like a springy motion. So to do that, we're actually going to use another constraint. So I'm going to create another null and then constrain this null to that null via a spring constraint. So let's just duplicate the target, and we'll call this one spring. Okay, and then with the target and the spring, we need to. It's important that these are both on the same PSR, same position, size, rotation. Make sure they're all set exactly the same, because when you're constraining with the spring, it can kind of do weird things. So you just want to make sure you're both they're all set up on the same PSR. Okay, so with the target selected, let's go tags, character tags, add another constraint. This time we're going to add a spring, and then in the spring tab, let's drag that spring target in. Okay, now we can animate the spring null. So on the first frame, let's set a keyframe for the position of 0 on the Y, and then move to frame 25, and I'm going to move this to 90. Now it doesn't look like that's doing anything, and that's mainly because the spring has moved up, but in real time it's trying to position itself correctly. Okay, but don't worry, once we play it through, this will work. Okay, so frame 55, see, it's gone up now. See, for some reason it kind of tries doing the springing in real time, so sometimes it's best to with a null without a spring to kind of set your position so you know what you're doing, and then set it in the spring, and you won't get any surprises. So I'm going to go to frame 55 and set another Y keyframe, and then I'm going to go to frame 80, and I'm going to bring that back down to 0. So let's play this through. Okay, let's wait for it to calm down. There you go. So now we've got the up and that down motion. We've got that kind of little bit of springiness, that little bit of additional animation going on. Now, an important thing to note when you come to render this out is that with this spring constraint, it's kind of important what frame you're on when you actually set the render out, because if you're set on this frame, and obviously at the beginning you should be, you know, down here, the rendering kind of messes up because it tries to actually get it back to that point. So what I found to do like that, see that big bounce we had just there? So what I found was the best thing to do is to kind of get it, you know, pause at the end, like near where it's going to be, go back to frame 0, now, you know, save and render that out. That's just a little problem that I came up against. Now what I've done here is I've just brought in a very simple Cinema 4D material just with a tile texture. Now this is just to talk about the material on this object so it bends correctly. Now if you add it just onto the cube as is, it's got this obviously UV mapping attached to it, but you might want to make that like cubic, for instance, because it's a square object. Now you can do that by sticking the texture onto the object. So let's turn everything off, and let's just say we go make this cubic, and then if you right click on the texture, do fit to object. So see, now we're actually getting the, you know, these the texture correctly on these bits as well as everywhere else, so everything's kind of the correct size. Okay, but if I were to bend this, let's turn everything on, the texture is not sticking correctly at all, it's just flat. So let's go back to frame 0, turn off all of the bends, and what we'll do is go to tags, Cinema 4D tags, stick texture, and we'll click record. That should stick it in place. Now we turn everything back on again, you see when it's bending, it's now sticking onto the object correctly. Okay, so now with that in mind, we'll just do a quick setup of setting this up in Octane. So here we are with the Octane Live Viewer window, and all I've done is just brought in this stage object, which is just a spline that's been extruded, and I've just added on I'm going to make this a diffuse, actually, a diffuse material with this purple color on, and that's literally all I've added on there. Okay, let's bring in an Octane camera, and let's kind of get our angle right. I kind of like to have quite a wide angle on these. I'm going to go for a tele lens. Oh God, I guess that's a, yeah, okay, so that's kind of the angle I want to go for. Okay, and now we can add on some materials. Actually, I might move that stage down a little bit. Add on some simple materials. Let's create a glossy, and you see I set up that these materials the same on both of them, so I'm just going to kind of replace that. So that's kind of, I know our UV map is set up on those. I mean, we're not going to put like a really distinctive texture on these, we're just going to color these up. So I think I'm going to go with maybe orangey color. So I'm just kind of playing around. Maybe I want to go for something more like pastel-y. Maybe something like that. No, actually, I'm going to make it brighter. Sorry, this is a bit where you can kind of play to, actually I quite like that one. Play to get your materials correct. Okay, and then I am going to add in a couple of lights. So let's go to here, and I'm going to create an Octane targeted area light. So let's put a target right in the middle of the stage, so the light is going to point at that target. Now obviously we've got the light right in front of the camera at the moment. Now you can actually, with the Octane light selected, go down to opacity in the light settings and actually turn that right down, and that just means that the camera can't see it. See, the light's far too bright, but see if we move the camera around, the light around, see it's always focusing on that target area, that target point. So let's just put like one light over here. I'm going to take the brightness right down. I'm going to use this just to kind of pick up some light on this edge. Then I'm going to duplicate that light, and I think I'm going to put one over this side. Maybe move it up a bit. I want to kind of highlight this edge. Just bring this down. So your temperature you can move up and down. Obviously that way makes it more, actually that looks quite cool actually. So you could make it more red. I might actually keep that. So you get a little bit of this kind of red poking up on here, and then we also get a bit in the background, which kind of goes nice with the purple. Okay. And then what I'll probably do is I want to add a HDRI in here, so we can kind of bring up some more of the reflections on the object. So let's create a HDRI environment. Wow, that's dramatic. So that's gone dark like that because the sky is currently set to black. So let's get an image. I've got these selection of images. I've got a few HDRIs. I'm going to pick this one. This is kind of a, I got this one online. It's kind of a day scene, but you see we just get a little bit of this extra like nice light. You can, with that selected, oh actually what we need to do is make this path tracing rather than direct lighting. See, we get that kind of like really like nicer, softer look to it. What I might do is actually make, maybe we'll make one side of the zip slightly different color. So let's maybe make it a kind of slightly different orange, and then drag that on. Yeah, something like that. So we've got kind of a differentiation between the two. And then just so they're not perfectly shiny, we'll add some roughness on. So in the roughness channel, I'm just going to get an image texture. Let's pick this rusty one. Can't really see that because that's on that side. So let's just, with that selected, let's copy that shader, go to here, and we'll paste it in there. Okay, and you can see we're picking up some of that roughness now on there. Yeah, and that's looking quite nice. Now what I'll do is, with this selected, let's just change our settings. I'm going to make this something like 1000, 10 and 10. Might set this to 10. We'll put adaptive sampling on, so that helps with speeding up the render. And then you can also put on the AI denoiser, which I explain in another tutorial. So now you're ready to render this out. Now here's my final render again. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you found this helpful, and please remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more. Please stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye.